Hello there and welcome along. The Gardener Ben here. Now, this is a question I get asked an awful lot. I have a rose in a position in the garden that I don't like. It's not doing particularly well, or I just like to move it and take it with me, maybe to a new house or a new property. Many of you buy roses that you don't know really where to put them, and you put them into sort of saving locations, or you haven't got the borders in the garden quite sorted out, or maybe you just want to have a little bit of a shuffle about. So behind me is a rose that has been in its location for around 12 months now. You can really move any size rose if you feel confident that you have the strength and the ability to get underneath it and get it out of the ground. This is always best done, and I mean best done, when the plant is dormant. So anywhere from the end of October all the way through to the very end of February into the very beginning of March. I'm going to say that as a general rule, because what you don't want to have the plant do is the plant wake up too quickly when it hasn't had a chance to take a breath and start producing some roots below ground. The key to this process is making sure that you're balancing the growth at the top and below ground, and we're going to do that in a couple of movements in just a moment. So this rose basically for me has been in the trial garden, where it's been going through my personal review process and has been in the ground for around 1 year. Now going to be made part of my actual rose collection. I've got a location sorted in the garden for about 5 or 6 of the roses that are alongside me. So I'm going to talk you through the process of actually lifting the rose and actually preparing it to plant somewhere else. So I'd say you can do this through a certain time of year, as long as the roses are dormant. The problem with growing in a fairly mild location like we do here on the south coast of the UK is it takes an awfully long time for our roses to go dormant. If your leaves have dropped and you've entered into that autumn and winter season, you can all clear to go. As long as the ground is not frozen, as long as the ground is not waterlogged, you are all okay. I'm going to have to defoliate this by hand today. Just want to get the leaves off to make sure that I'm not transferring pest and disease problems on to the next location, although this one is particularly good, which is why it's becoming part of my actual collection. So you're going to need a few basic pieces of equipment today. Pair of gloves are always handy, a bucket, a wheelbarrow, or whatever you put your garden waste into as you work around the garden, because I'm going to be doing some pruning with this one in just a moment. And you're also going to need a spade. Now, I go on about this an awful lot. Make sure that if you are buying a garden spade, you buy something a little smaller than you might think you might need. Most people often actually struggle with garden spades because they're far too wide. They're trying to dig and lift and lift turf, for instance, and dig borders with a really large border spade. Gentleman's spade, as they used to be able to call them. Personally, although I'm a big burly man, I always prefer a slender ladies or a small transplanting spade like this one. This one is from Bergen and Ball. Nice long digging blade on it, nice and sharp. Don't ever be scared of actually putting a sharpened blade onto your spade. Angle grinder, or take it along to a local DIY store or somewhere like that. They can actually do these kind of things, tool sharpening for you, or maybe a cobbler might be able to do it for you. But actually, don't be scared about putting a sharpened blade or a burr onto the actual spade itself. It will really, really help you in your digging. Keep these items clean and keep these items sharp, and they will make your life a lot easier when you come to do this. So some basic pieces of equipment. The first thing we're going to do today is we're going to protect our eyes, and we're going to make the job a little bit easier. And we're going to do that by removing quite a lot of this top growth. This one is actually Charles Austin that went through my full personal growing review process this year. And it's quite a tall shrub, coming up to about 5 feet in height. But I want to actually remove quite a lot of this growth so I can actually get in around it and it's not going to cause me any problems or any harm. So I'm just going to put my gloves on, and with my secateurs, I'm simply going to remove quite a lot of this growth back. I'm not going to pay too much attention to it at the moment. What I want to do is I simply want to remove the bulk so I can get up close and personal with it. Now, I've gone on about this an awful lot, about keeping your working area tidy. Many people don't agree with this, but being a professional gardener, I've experienced this a lot over my period of time working. Just make sure that you put your cuttings into a bucket. Don't allow them to fall to the floor, because I can guarantee you something like this will bite you in the future. So keep your work area tidy. And all I've done is simply shorten these stems back so they are out of my way and they are tidy. And we're going to do the full balancing in just a moment, because I say it's very important at this stage that we balance the top and the bottom growth. Now, depending on how this rose comes out the ground, how much root I manage to get out of the ground with it will depend on how much root growth that we, how much top growth we end up saving on it as well. Next thing to do is to take your spade. I've got an irrigation system here that I'm just going to pull out of the way. And I'm going to go around my plant. I'm going to sink my spade all the way down, full depth of the spade, right around the plant, severing any roots that are growing outwards. I'm working around 10 to 11, maybe 12 inches away from the plant. So I'm sinking my spade right in. I'm going around in a circle, just as deep as I can possibly go with my spade. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. Make sure that you're making a full circle. There's no area left uncut when you do this. Take your time. There's no rush. Although it feels like a bit of a rush to me because I've got an awful lot of these to do. All the way around the plant. Last one. Right, the next bit, get right up underneath of it with your spade, and this is where you start to lift. Again, I'm going to do this in about 4 locations around the plant to give it the most opportunity to take as much root with it as possible. You'll hear roots below the soil starting to snap and move. The plant, hopefully at this stage, will start to move with it. I think I've got quite a decent root on this one, although most of the soil is going to be removed in just a second. One last go. Right, a moment of truth. Here we go. And out he comes. You'll hear the crack as the root systems let go. And all you need to do is, with your gloves, get hold of the plant itself. And give it a good tug. Right. What we're doing at this stage is pretty much returning the plants to a bare root state. You can see, if I bring that close to the camera, I've got a lovely lump of root on the bottom of that one. Don't want to disturb that too much at this stage. What I do want to do now is to go through its pruning process. Let's turn it upside down so you can see what I'm going to do. I now want to do my pruning on this rose and actually rebalance it. So we're starting with the basics. We're going to remove any dead, diseased or dying wood to begin with. And I haven't got any dead, diseased or dying wood. This is a really nice, healthy plant. It's not going to stand up very well here, is it? Right, and what we want to do is we then want to do our autumn and winter pruning. This is far easier when the plant is out of the ground than it is when it's actually back in the ground. So all I'm going to do is remember the basics. I'm going to be opening up the centre of this plant, making sure I've got a nice open goblet right in the centre. I'm going to shorten these canes back. This plant is only around 24 months old. So I want to shorten it back and start creating my permanent framework by selecting my outward facing buds. I'm putting my secateurs at a 45-degree angle. And I'm simply going to cut the growth back. Nice sloping cut with the buds at the top of those cuts. Outward facing bud means the plant will grow quite naturally in an outward facing direction. Once again, making sure when you're cutting, and I'm going to bring this into the camera so you can see on a piece of wood. There we go, you can see right now I have a nice tidy plant. All nice and cut back, nicely balanced. It has more root than it has above ground, and that's the key. You want it to have absolutely everything it needs below ground than above ground. If it has less roots than it has above ground, the plant is really going to struggle to support itself and it ultimately might die. So if you haven't got a particularly lot of root, you're going to have to shorten that growth right back. Right, we were talking a second about selecting the outward facing buds, and one of the most important things to do is to make sure that when you're placing your secateurs and you're actually selecting your outward facing bud, you allow yourself enough room between the bud, which is just here in the leaf axil, and the actual cut itself. Estimating something in the region of between 4 and 6 millimeters. What you don't want to do is you don't want the anvil or the blade of your secateur to crush the bud as it passes. So give yourself a little bit of room. You can see there's my cut there, 45-degree angle, the bud growing outwards, and that's the key. Right, I've got about 5 or 6 roses to remove out of this border, and then I'm going to go off and plant them. So the most important thing now working forward is you look after this plant really, really well. Treat it as a bare root plant. Get it into the ground, I say during the dormant period. I wouldn't go past the end of February or the very, very beginning of March with this technique. So you want it, I had to have a little bit of time in those lull months before the spring starts to really warm up to produce lots of root growth below ground. All those little micro hairs that we've unfortunately damaged during this process, they need time to regrow, which is going to support the growth above ground. Make sure that when you're planting, you're following my step-by-step planting guide. So most importantly, you're incorporating a lot of organic matter, especially if you're planting into a location where it's had something else growing in it, whether it's a rose or whether it's a shrub or something else. You need to make sure that you're enriching the soil and giving this plant all the nutrition benefits that it needs from a good mulching. So lots of organic matter, whether it's homemade garden compost, whether it's well-rotted horse manure, or whether it's soil conditioner like I'm going to be using, and make sure that you're doing that regularly. You cannot mulch enough. Continue to incorporate, just spreading out mulch across the soil surface, and let those soil organisms such as the worms come up and drag that into the soil for you. Make sure that you water it well, even if it's wet, because you need really, really good micro contact between the soil and the roots. Make sure that you water it as soon as it gets in the ground, and make sure you keep an eye on the weather. If it doesn't rain regularly during the winter months, you need to make sure that you're giving it at least a watering can of water. And in the spring, when it starts to wake up, you're going to have to be treating this plant pretty much like a bare root plant, and watering it really regularly. Make sure that you return and water it at least once or twice a week with an entire watering can of water. What we want to do is not water little and often. We want to deep water, making sure that the water goes right down into the subsoil. The roots from the plant will then follow them as well. So you end up with a much stronger and much more drought resistant plant than if you watered them little and often. You can't mollycoddle these things. You shouldn't be treating them too well. So make sure that you water them deeply and maybe once or twice a week. If you have any questions on the subject of moving roses, or you need any further information, don't hesitate to drop me a comment below. I will see you all again soon. Take good care now. Bye bye.